What do raw eggs, garlic, mental illness, and weddings have in common? As always, another episode of Bridgerton. Cheerio, everyone. Good day to you all. This is the Movieman, fellow cinephile, popcorn addict, and emerging film critic, coming to you with reliable recaps, reviews, and reactions. And today, of course, I'm coming to you with another episode of Bridgerton, Season 1, Episode 5, The Duke and I. And similar to Episode 4, this episode is also directed by Cherie Folkson. And now, let us commence. So we open up this episode and we have picked right up from the events of the last one. Daphne has made it home from the duel. It's still pretty early, but she manages to make it into bed before her personal maid, Rose, knocks on her door. Next up, we see the Viscountess Bridgerton, who is having quite the rough morning after all the drinking she did the night before. She insists it was just a poor night of sleep, but the house manager recommends she drink a glass of raw eggs and garlic. And I was like, of all the combinations, ooh. If it's a choice between drinking that or staying hungover, I might have to stay hungover. Daphne walks in and lets her mother know that she is now engaged. And the Viscountess is like, oh, okay, well, you're to be a princess now. And Daphne's like, no, I'm to be a duchess. The Duke proposed. And of course the Viscountess is excited because this is what she's wanted all along. But she also notices that Daphne isn't as excited or happy as she should be. But she insists, no, I'm so in love and it's just happening so fast, but I'm excited, I'm in love. Well, we know the circumstances behind that. As a matter of fact, Daphne really doesn't see the need to wait. Why not get a special license so we can marry this week? And the Viscountess laughs and she's like, oh, oh, you're serious. And Daphne is about to explain why, but then the Viscountess is like, no. You don't have to explain anything. I know how this works, okay? I mean, your father and I we could barely keep our hands off each other. So you know what? All is well. We'll make this happen. And this is just another reminder of why I really love the Viscountess as a character, because she's so lively, she's so bubbly, she has all this personality, and she really relates to her daughters. And she really is the antithesis to what you would see in a lot of mothers during that time. Very cold, very withholding, and just kind of ruling with an iron fist. But no, she is the complete opposite of that, and I really enjoy her. So it's settled. We have a wedding to plan in 3 days. The housekeeper was looking like, excuse me? Then we hit our title credit and we see the Queen in yet another great locked headpiece, and she is eagerly anticipating the betrothal of her nephew and Daphne. However, those hopes are dashed when Lady Whistledown announces the betrothal of the Duke and Daphne. The prince walks in as they're reading it and he's like, oh, has anything happened? And they're just looking at him like... And then later we see the prince pay Daphne a visit at her home. They have a conversation and he's kind of confused. He figured they were on the same page, I figured we were going to go forward, this was going to be our future. And Daphne just convinces him, you know what, it has nothing to do with you. You're a great guy. You're nice and kind. However, the Duke, I just couldn't deny my feelings for him anymore. So it literally caught me off guard. And the prince isn't a sore loser, so he wishes her and her husband a lifetime of contentment, and he leaves. And I felt kind of bad for him. He was a good guy, and I know he would have been a good husband to her, but you can't really beat passion, and then it also doesn't help that we have this whole overarching situation that complicates everything. So really kind of a lose-lose. And as soon as he left, I was thinking, I know Cressida is somewhere like, cha-ching, jackpot. We see Lady Danbury, the Viscountess, and Daphne on the promenade. They're waiting for the Duke to arrive. But when he does, he is extremely disheveled. His eyes are bloodshot. He looks rough. And Lady Danbury says, did you bring the ball with you, boy? So the Duke and Daphne go walking together, and you can tell that he is very much shut off. He doesn't have a lot to say. She's trying to broach conversation, but it's not working. And then what makes it even worse is that people are congratulating them on being the perfect pair. You're going to have such a beautiful family. And it's just like... No, this situation is far from ideal. Once again, we see Anthony searching for Sienna, but instead he finds the modiste. And she quickly lets him know that Sienna is gone. She doesn't want to deal with you. She doesn't need you or your money. Leave her alone. Goodbye. And then over at the Featherington home, we see that Colin once again is very intently pursuing Marina, much to Penelope's irritation. She's trying her best to kind of dissuade him passive-aggressively, but it's not working. So she decides to drop a little bug in her mom's ear and say that, you know what? I don't know if Colin's going to be serious about Marina. Besides, she doesn't have any time to waste. We then see Daphne the modiste. She's being fitted for a new dress. And who should show up but Cressida? I had a feeling. So they pretend to have a polite conversation, but under the veneer of politeness, we can clearly see that Cressida is insinuating how much she knows about her and the Duke and the whole garden rendezvous. Cressida accuses Daphne of only dallying with the Duke to make the prince jealous, and then luring the Duke into the garden to seduce him. I was like, now, you had me in the first half, but no, I don't think so. So Daphne takes it a step further and she's like, look, I'm about to be a duchess in a few days. So you can either be the friend of a duchess or the enemy of a duchess. Your choice. And Cressida just says, well, you have to get him down the aisle first, which only adds to the intense anxiety that Daphne is experiencing. We then see the queen having another conversation with her nephew, and she is not happy at all. She feels like he should continue to fight for her. You know, don't give up now, but the prince is over it. He's like, look, that's who she's happy with. I'm over it. It's time to move on. But we all know that the queen is not going to give up the fight that easily. We later see the Duke and Anthony at the church, and Anthony wants to discuss Daphne's dowry. And the Duke is like, look, just like, let's not even talk about the dowry. I don't need it. It's a bit of an insult. Daphne's well-being is my responsibility, and I take it very seriously. We don't need that. The Archbishop walks in as they're talking, and alas, bad news is afoot. So that special license that the Duke and Daphne were counting on, it's been denied. No one understands why the Archbishop would do this, but Lady Danbury, of course, is perceptive enough to know that, oh no, this wasn't the Archbishop, it was the Queen, and she does not appreciate the fact that you rejected her nephew. So the only way to make it out of this situation is to give the Queen the one thing she wants more than anything, attention. So you'll have to go to her and make a personal appeal, but you'll have to do your best because she can easily detect when someone is being insincere. Benedict pays Mr. Granville another visit, and when he steps inside, he sees that there's a party going on. And not just any party. I mean, it's a whole lot of freaking sneaky going on, if you know what I mean. Shout out to Maxine Shaw from Living Single. So as Benedict is taking in all the sights, he suddenly bumps into the modiste. And it doesn't take too long before they're all over each other. I was like, oh, well, all right. Benedict attempts to take her into another room, but when he opens the door, he sees none other than Mr. Granville with another man. And like I said before, I had kind of gotten a vibe, but I wasn't sure. Well, there it is. But Benedict doesn't have any time to react because the modiste has brought a friend with her. And all three of them start getting it in. I was like, we just getting all kinds of buck wild this episode. And scenarios like this are so interesting to me because, you know, of course, things like this did go down. People have always had their vices. People have always, you know, snuck around and did what they wanted to do on the low. But I also wonder sometimes, like, how did people get away with that? And I sometimes wonder if maybe it's because if you had a certain amount of influence or power or money, it's just like, well, you know, you can keep people's secrets, or, you know, you could, you know, put them on blast and put them on Front Street and say like, hey, you were there too, you know. So it's interesting seeing the dynamics of, you know, all this behind the scenes stuff, but no one really knowing about it. I think that's really interesting. So we see Lady Featherington and Marina, and once again, Lady Featherington is pushing Lord Rutledge as her soon-to-be betrothed. Marina's like, okay, once again, Colin is there. I don't have to marry this man. But once again, Lady Featherton is like, you don't have time. He's going to waste your time, of course, going off of what Penelope has told her. So no, that's out of the question. You're getting married to Lord Rutledge, and that's it. But Marina has a proposal. She knows that marrying into the Bridgerton family would bring Lady Featherington and her family a lot of prestige, a lot of power, a lot of connections. So if you can give me until Saturday and he hasn't proposed by then, I'll marry Lord Rutledge with a smile on my face. And I'm like, okay, interesting maneuver. However, Lady Featherington still recognizes a flaw in this plan. She's like, he could propose to you tomorrow and the wedding still wouldn't be for weeks. So how's that gonna work? And Marina's like, well, that's assuming we wait until the wedding to consummate our union. I was like, hold on now. I mean, hey, it's smart. I mean, do what you have to do. But I'm like, oh, that might backfire also. And Lady Featherton is looking at her like, so you're going to seduce him? Marina's like, I will do whatever I have to do. And then we see that poor Penelope is standing outside listening to all this. I'm just like, what a mess. We then get a very eye-opening scene with the queen. She is sitting down to dinner with the king, and this is our first time seeing the king. Any other time, the staff are coming and giving her updates about the king, and she's like, is he dead? Is he dead? And we don't really understand the dynamic of their relationship. Like, is he sick? Is he dying? But he looks pretty much okay when she goes into the dining room. And the conversation they're having is very positive, very loving. They're recalling all these fond memories. It was a really nice moment. And everything is fine until the king asks for his daughter Emily. Well, the problem is that Emily got sick and died many years ago. And the king is confused because he's like, I just saw her a fortnight ago. And then, of course, we realize that the king is mentally ill, and he then begins to attack the queen. He's like, what did you do with my daughter? What did you do? And he has a horrible reaction. He is smashing plates. He wants to know where his daughter is, and we see the queen rush off, and we realize that her inner pain is dealing with this being her husband, who she has loved and adored for so many years, but now seeing him deteriorate and not recognize reality. And that's very much a real thing. And I can definitely relate because I've had relatives who have had Alzheimer's, and it's the most terrible thing to lose your memory and to lose all of these experiences and all of these bonds and all of these years together. And for this illness to just cloud it all, it's the most horrible thing. So I absolutely empathize for her. And of course, it totally made sense why we never saw him. Also, I thought the scene was really interesting because historically, the real King George III did suffer from mental illness. Some people say it might have been a bipolar disorder, and then some say it might have been a blood illness called porphyria. But either way, we are now seeing a very different side of the queen. We then see the Duke waking up in the home of his good friend Will. Of course, the night before, the Duke was drunk and clowning and acting a fool. So Will just took the initiative of taking the Duke home and letting him sleep it off. So next we see that the time has finally come and the Duke and Daphne must make their appeal to the Queen. The Viscountess Bridgerton and Lady Danbury are there, and Lady Danbury steps forward and bows to the Queen. The Queen is like, is that as low as you can go? And Lady Danbury is like, with these knees? Yes. Oh, I was cracking up. And what's funny is there are people who are not even close to Lady Danbury's age that have the same issue. I don't know what happens, but you just hit a certain age, them knees, they turn on you, boy. Daphne steps forward and they begin to make their appeal. Daphne begins by saying that it was love at first sight, and she's trying to convince her, but then the Duke is like, And he lets the Queen know, she's flattering me, but it was not love at first sight. I wasn't feeling her. She wasn't feeling me. But along the way, something changed, and we found friendship. And honestly, this whole thing was a ruse. We literally fooled everybody into thinking that we were courting, and we really just enjoyed being around each other. I mean, to meet a beautiful woman is one thing, but to find the best of friends in a beautiful woman, that's next level. And yeah, it might have taken a prince coming around for me to realize it, but I want this woman to be my wife. I was like, boy, you better say it. I was like, the Duke went off. I was like, Daphne. And you can see that Daphne was just like she is totally like blown away. And so is the Queen. Like, she's like, oh. She's really taken aback, but she goes ahead and asks Daphne, do you want to marry this man? And we don't even have to see her answer because, of course, then we see the wedding taking place. The Bridgertons are on the right, and Lady Danbury, Will, and his wife Alice are on the left. And in the end, they are pronounced man and wife with very tense expressions on their faces. I'm just like, y'all are really killing the vibe up in here. We jump forward to the reception, and it is quite the affair. We see this massive, decked out, sculpted cake. We see all this food and all these guests, and everyone is having a good time. Well, everyone that is, except Daphne and the Duke. Once again, Cresta is there, and she congratulates Daphne on her marriage. And in a not so subtle manner, she lets Daphne know that she's more than welcome to be friends. She just hopes that Daphne will remember her kindness in keeping secrets and repay her someday. I'm just like, that Cressida boy. We see Penelope and Marina, and it's the same old situation. And Penelope lets Marina know that she does not appreciate her attempts to trick Colin into a lifelong commitment with her. And as they're having that conversation, Lady Featherington walks up and she lets them know that Lord Rutledge is no longer available. He is now engaged. Marina's like, how? Terrible. So that means that everything is riding on Colin's proposal. So keeping that in mind, Marina takes Colin into the study nearby, and she decides that she's going to outright seduce this man. I was like, not in the house, not in the study with all these people. It's a party going on. Like, I mean, like I said, do what you have to do, but just, this is a lot. Although Colin is tempted, he is very much a gentleman, and he doesn't want to compromise his honor or hers. But he takes it a step further. He asks Marina to marry him. Well, hot dog, mission accomplished. However, he lets her know that they're going to marry at the end of the season, which is a ways away. And you can literally see Marina's face drop. So, I mean, she's kind of accomplished what she wanted, but that pregnancy, though. We see that Eloise is still on the hunt to uncover Lady Whistledown's identity. And who should she be talking to but Lady Danbury? She's like, I don't know, it might be you. I know you love secrets. And Lady Danbury is like, who doesn't love secrets? Otherwise, why would Lady Whistledown be successful? I mean, thank you for the accusation, but it's not me. Let me know when you find out, though. And she walks away. And I definitely knew it wasn't Lady Danbury because not only is it extremely obvious, Lady Danbury will say whatever she needs to say to you in your face. She will drag you, she will clown you, she will say whatever. She doesn't have to run to a paper or a circular to say it there when she can just say it to your face. The queen overhears this conversation, and now she is really interested in hearing what Eloise has uncovered about Lady Whistledown. Benedict is walking around, and he bumps into Mr. Granville, and as Mr. Granville is about to mention the party, Benedict is like, oh, what party? I don't know what you mean. You know, completely glosses it over. And then suddenly, Mr. Granville introduces Benedict to his wife. And I was so thrown off. I was like, oh, wait a minute. This is what we're doing? So that was my initial thing. Like, oh, he has a wife. So I'm like, what's going on here? But then, oh my gosh. Benedict looks at the woman and he realizes that is the same woman he just had a menage a trois with the Modis. I was like, you should have seen my face. I was like, no, what kind of situation y'all got going on? Wow. So I was like, not only are you sleeping with men and throwing these wild parties at your house, your wife is participating and this man has slept. I mean, get it how you live, but wow. Ooh, that is too much mess for me. I am good. Anthony speaks to Daphne and he is giving her well wishes on her future family with the Duke. He's pretty sure that they'll both have enough kids to put their parents to shame. And Daphne is triggered once again because we know the reality and we know that this marriage is built on a very unsteady foundation. Really not much of a foundation at all, if we're being honest. So Daphne runs upstairs, she's in her room, she's very distraught. The Viscountess Bridgerton comes in and she is doing her best to have this very awkward conversation about sex and intimacy. And she uses this example of the basset hounds in the country and how, you know, no one had to tell them what they were doing, but they had puppies. I was like, now, we got to do better than this. Unfortunately, there's no time to talk about it any further because the carriages have arrived and it is time for the new married couple to venture forth. Daphne is bidding everyone farewell, and she even has well wishes for Eloise. She gives Eloise her room, and she also lets her know that, look, I know the two of us are very, very different, but if there's one thing I know, it's the certainty that you will make your way in the world. And they embrace and they hug, and you know, it's your usual sister dynamic. They might fight and fuss and go back and forth, but underneath there's real love there. So that was really nice. And they're off. The Duke and Daphne, or should I say the Duke of Hastings and the Duchess of Hastings, are now en route to their new home. However, the journey is very far and it's not really safe to be riding at night, so there's an inn that they're going to stay in overnight. So when they get there, Daphne finds out that the Duke has requested a separate room. And we can see that there is so much tension between them. They are both pacing back and forth in their rooms. They haven't talked. It's just so much tension. It's so uncomfortable. And I'm just like, how is this marriage gonna work? Like, this is not a good start. So finally, Daphne heads to her door, presumably to go talk to the Duke, but when she opens it, the Duke is already there. And he asks her if she's ready to go down to dinner. She's over it. She's like, no, I do not want to go down to dinner. She's over this whole dynamic between the two of them. She wanted to talk to him and he shut her out. And as they continue to go back and forth, we realize that they have been at cross purposes and that every time one person did something, they thought they were doing it for the benefit of the other person, but then it made the other person think that they had an issue. So yeah, it's one of those situations where it's just a bunch of miscommunication and there's a lot of misperception. Like, I'm thinking you're doing this when really it's this. So yeah. And ultimately, they are both very guilty and very frustrated because they feel like they have trapped the other person into marriage. But in spite of all of that, the Duke lets Daphne know that everything I said to the Queen was 100% true. He says, no matter what time of day, no matter what's going on, my thoughts of you never end. I am yours, Daphne. I have always been yours. I was like, golly. Those are strong words, okay? And Daphne's like, I don't understand. And I'm like, Daphne. Like, I'm like, what else is this man supposed to say? And he says the same thing. He's like, okay, I don't know how to make it any clearer to you. And then they start going back and forth again. She's like, why are you mad? And da 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 da. And he's like, because I burn for someone who does not feel the same. Whoo! Oh, we done got somewhere now. He's like, why do you think I followed you into that garden? And she's like, why do you think I ran into the garden? I was like, well, it would have taken only a moment and you would have seen. I burn for you. Wait a minute. And listen, I'm not saying I'm the biggest romance person myself, but someone who I have even an inkling of attraction to lets me know that they burn for me, and it's game over. Okay, it's just like, that's next level. Like, this ain't a joke. This is passion, okay? This is overflow. So as we see, they have literally been on the exact same page the entire time, but on opposite ends. Oh, and speaking of opposite ends, that's over. Okay, it's going down. And I don't have to go into any detail because, I mean, the scene speaks for itself. But just seeing it slowly unfold, seeing it happen, just seeing the progression of the two of them and all of this tension and frustration and friendship and camaraderie and all these things finally come together. I mean, they did their job. I mean, it was extremely believable. Maybe too believable. I was watching that and I was like, oh, like, I mean, I know they call this acting, but I will say kudos to the intimacy coach and kudos to the actors, because that's not easy, because you're doing take after take. You got to get different angles. You have a crew, you have lighting, you have all these things going on while you are trying to kind of simulate a sexual, love-making, intimate scene. And it's just like to kind of keep that going time after time, and who knows how long it would take. I'm just like, whew. I tip my hat because I know I could not do that. And in the end, you know, the final product, you know, it's extremely believable. It's very realistic. And I also wonder sometimes how it is some of these actors don't catch feelings. I mean, of course, it's still, once again, it's very technical, but there's still a lot of physical body contact. So after a certain point, it's just like, you know, you're revving up stuff and it's just like, how do you bring that back down? But anyway, they have their moment. It is passionate. It is intimate. It is everything both of them were hoping and a whole lot more. And I really love the music especially. Like, it really like enhanced the whole moment. And let me say that if you're single, then this scene is probably gonna have you feeling some type of way. And then if you're married or in some form of relationship, you're probably gonna be trying to reenact this. I'm just saying. I'm not mad at it, but I'm just saying, y'all gonna be sitting here watching this and then boom, we gotta go upstairs. So anyway, that scene closes out with them having their moment. And of course, we end that scene with Daphne smiling and very happy and saying that she feels wonderful. And that closes out episode 5, The Duke and I. What an episode, man. This really was something to see. And I'm not even just talking about that end part, but there was just a whole lot going on here. And like I said, the dynamics are really interesting. And I'm really wondering, now that they're married, you know, how does that change everything? Like, are we still going to have a focus with the two of them? Are we going to see everyone else? I mean, I'm pretty sure we are, but I'm just wondering, like, how is that going to work and where is their story going to go now that they are married? Like, this could almost be like a finale episode, but we still have at least, you know, a few more episodes to go. So, yeah, I'm really intrigued, really excited to see what happens next. So, once again, this is D, Movieman, signing off, and I'll see you at the movies.